Morning. The stream just kicked on, so we're going to wait another minute to let people join. Morning.
Sorry about that.
You are okay. The stream is slow to fill up today as well, so you are technically on time.
Nice and cold out.
So what?
Nice and cold out.
Yes, it is. We were just talking about how nice it is to finally have, for fall to finally fully be here.
Oh, certainly.
Actually, Mike, what do you think fall smells like?
What do you think fall smells like?
Or like, what do you think would constitute a fall smell?
Yeah, what makes the fall smell? We were talking about this earlier.
That's a good question. Things like there's a smell when leaves fall on the ground and start to rot.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like an earthy smell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like when all those leaves and biomass fall, it starts to rot around. When it starts to rot, it'll leave like a smell. I don't know how to describe it. That would be my sense of fall.
My theory was also decay.
Decay.
Plant decay, yeah.
That would be a decay of leaves and biomass.
Mm-hmm. Biomass.
Well, that's anything natural.
Right. Yeah, I guess it is specifically plant decay.
Yeah.
If all the animals were shedding parts of themselves, then fall would smell like,
Yeah.
fall would smell like garbage.
That's another one. I went to the poetry thing on Wednesday.
You did? Oh, awesome. How was it?
It was cool. It was actually, I was a judge again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you went to the first one too, that's right.
Yes, and I went to this one to maybe a judge again on this one.
Uh-huh. How many people were there?
There were maybe like 10 in all, including the poets. There weren't that many.
Okay,
Maybe
cool.
like 8.
They cap it at 15, so that works.
Yeah, there were 4 people presenting.
Mm-hmm.
2 presenting. Like, that's fairly, so.
Do you think it was the same crew as last time, or is it rotating a
Yeah, it was
little?
the same crew as last time, but 2 new poets at this time.
Cool.
Same people running it though.
Mm-hmm. If they don't fill up, then I got to get myself over there. I keep meaning
Yeah,
to.
you should. It's fun.
Yeah, I haven't been to like a poetry open mic in forever.
Yeah, it's cool. I think the next one's virtual, but I'm not sure.
The next one at least has a virtual. The head of it was emailing me the other day, and the next one's at least going to have a virtual option.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I see more people. I see a higher number of watchers in the stream than there are names in the chat. So if you haven't put your name in the chat yet, throw it down. And we'll get started in just a sec. Russell, thank you. Justin, thank you.
Harvest Moon last night.
What's a harvest moon again?
It's like when it's got that yellowish color to it.
Oh, I'm sad that I missed that. That's cool.
I just noticed it was big and bright.
Yeah, it's got like a little orange, yellowish color to it.
Mhm. Those two things go together, right? Generally, when it's a harvest moon, it's also large.
Yes.
I think that's yeah. Okay, we should do it. We got a bunch of people in the chat now. So if you got a device out, you can put it away. If you don't have your notebook out, you can take it out. First things first is a tiny note that if you don't have a grade yet for the favorite album write-up, I'm a little bit sorry. I've fallen behind in grading them because I was sick. And then this weekend, I've got to run. I'm the best man for my friend's wedding, and I've got to do his bachelor party this weekend. And so I'm just, I'm leaving for it, right after class today. And so I'm just sort of go. And so I've put a couple things to the side. So if you haven't gotten a grade yet, I've probably read your essay one time and, saved your comments, but I need to do, a second look through and stuff. And I've got 60 of them to publish. So just hopefully we'll have those done within the next 2 weeks. But I think that's the only housekeeping thing for right now. Today, we are doing word choice. Again, word choice part 2. And I think the best way to begin is by telling you that, like I said, I didn't expect to do 2 days on word choice. It kind of happened as I was building out the activities. And so I think I should begin by telling you that in making these lessons, the sort of nugget of truth or the realization or, the moment when I realized I was going to split them up that I landed upon was the idea that when you look at word choice from a wide enough lens, when you look at it from a really granular lens, you're looking at a sentence and you're switching out nouns and verbs and stuff. But when you look at word choice from a wide enough lens, eventually what you're talking about is the tone of voice that a piece achieves. And when you break tone of voice down into its constituent parts, eventually you end up talking about word choice. And I thought that was really interesting as I was sort of struggling to come up with what's the best activity. And so I think that one lesson wouldn't really be complete without the other in a sense. The idea of the large scale and the small scale, and that these things are on sort of opposing ends of some kind of scale. So with all that said, I'm going to read a poem that is all about tone of voice. It is from Tracy K. Smith's book, Life on Mars, one of my absolute favorites. Poems about space. Her dad worked on the Hubble, all that good stuff. And this poem is called The Museum of Obsolescence. And if the word obsolescence is not familiar to you, it's the adjective we use to describe things that are obsolete. All right. Museum of Obsolescence. So much we once coveted, so much that would have saved us, but lived instead its own quick span, returning to uselessness with mute acquiescence of shed skin. It watches us watch it, our faulty eyes, our telltale heat, hearts ticking through our shirts. We are here to titter at the gimcracks, the naive tools, the replicas of replicas stacked like bricks. There's some green money and oil in drums, pots of honey pilfered from a tomb, books recounting the wars, maps of fizzled stars. In the south wing, there's a small room where a living man sits on display. Ask, and he'll describe to you the old beliefs. If you laugh, he'll lower his head into his hands and sigh. When he dies, they'll replace him with a video, looping ad infinitum. Special installations come and go. Love was up for a season, followed by illness, concepts difficult to grasp. The last thing you see, after a mirror, someone's idea of a joke, is an image of the old planet taken from space. Outside, vendors hawk t-shirts, 3 for $8. So I think this poem fits in really nicely with what we talked about on Wednesday, with the idea that word choice is an output rather than an input. And I kind of want to continue thinking down this path for today. I bring in Tracy K. Smith's poem, Museum of Obsolescence, because it really firmly establishes this tone in the beginning through sort of like high diction phrases, sort of high stakes, what's the word I want? Sort of solemn phrases, like so much we once coveted, so much that could have saved us, right? That's a big place to start. And you can hear it in the tone. And then she undercuts it later with like, we titter at the gimcracks, right? I'm not even sure what a gimcrack is, but I have a feeling that I know what it is based on the poem. You know, it's like these little trinkets or something, right? Trinket even sounds like gimcrack, actually. And especially by the end of the poem, we're at, they hawk t-shirts 3 for $8, right? Totally different tone. And yet somehow they're working together. And so Smith seems to be, I think, with the tone here, she's kind of exploring, she's getting at one of our biggest problems in the world right now, which is that, I mean, anytime we try to revere something or cherish it, we end up marketing it and selling it bit by bit and like grinding it down to so much like cultural mulch, right? And I think that these differences in tone for me sort of emulate that sense that I have. And I wouldn't have been able to come to this sentence that I just had about cherishing stuff and turning it into mulch. Like that was a result of reading the poem. I was like, I feel what she's feeling here, right? And so I want to stick with this. I want to stick with this for our activity today when we talk about tone of voice. And I want to try playing with tone a little bit. So if you don't have your notebooks out already, you can take it out. And we're going to try and write today at least two really, really, really short poems. So I think that for most of the semester, for a lot of the semester at least, I've been sort of tricking you into writing poems by telling you to write about something and then asking you to like invite white space onto the page, right? And I think at this point we're ready to say that we're practicing writing poems. So for this exercise, just like Wednesday, I want you to try to keep your lines very, very short, even shorter than before, so that like we're talking like less than 5 words per line, if you can do it. 5 like max. And I also want you to try to use less than half a page of your notebook itself, which means that your poem is probably going to be maybe 60 words long or so, right? You go halfway down the page with 5 words a line. So a very, very short expression. And the prompt is this. Imagine that you have been called away for the job opportunity of a lifetime. It's like the perfect job, right? Whatever that might be for you. But also imagine that it's going to require you to live somewhere like Antarctica or outer space or something. So like the bottom of the ocean, right? Like the most remote possible place. Out of contact with your loved ones and everything for a year. Out of contact, that is key. So what I want you to do is, this poem now is an address to one of your parents, informing them of this news. So you have to try to compress both your explanation and your entire goodbye into these 60 or so words with all this white space. And as you write, notice what happens, what the word limit does to the words themselves, the pressure it puts on them. And especially notice what kinds of thoughts rise to your own sort of proverbial surface when you are under pressure to say it all in such a tiny space. And I hope you'll find that different words and phrases are arising than if I'd asked you to write, say, a letter or an essay. And we're going to work on this for 10 minutes. So feel free to erase, move lines around, start over, go to a new page, etc. But remember, keep your lines very short and try to finish the statement by half a page. We're going to do this for 10 minutes, and I'm going to interrupt us at around 6 minutes. There was like a weird sound, right? Okay, cool. I have tinnitus, but I was like, that's weird.
It does feel like tonight is not very
Mhm.
weird.
I wonder if it's the light. It is.
It is the light. Doing the balance and just back through. There.
I'm fine with that.
It's another sound.
Okay, so just for the record, I'm just noticing this is tough to compress. So I'm noticing I'm having some success. I've got like a bunch of different lines written on my page that I have not organized yet, and I'm going to spend the last 4 or 5 minutes putting them into poem shape. So if that helps you, try that. And we're close to halfway through our time. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. So if you feel stuck, or you feel like you've already reached an appropriate end for your poem, if you're lucky, I would encourage you to just start over. Try again with another blank, fresh page. See what lines remain from one draft to the next, and see what lines you end up leaving behind. And if you're totally stuck, I encourage you to try changing tracks and maybe addressing a different parental figure. About a minute and a half left. Okay. I'm going to give you another minute. Just read the thing over and finish up your thoughts if you need to. Mine's definitely not done. I feel like I got the first like 40% of it down. There's all these other lines like around it that I haven't figured out how to write in yet. Okay. I don't know about you. Mine fucking works. I'm super pleased with the beginning of this. I'm interested in this. Okay. So and it connects to the next thing I'm going to say. So I'm going to go out on a limb here for a moment, talking about your poem, and I'm hoping that what I'm about to say applies to what you've just written, and I'm pretty sure it does. Notice how your poem, inevitably, as you read it, becomes a metaphor for your absence, for leaving the house as you go off to college, for aging, for growing up. The situation is fictional, but the way it grounds itself in the real present moment is unavoidable, right? We all inevitably say a certain kind of goodbye to our parents as we grow up and leave the house and get jobs and don't need their advice as much anymore, right? And notice, too, the language that you've chosen. With that sort of metaphor, prevailing metaphor in mind, notice the sense of ceremony you either did or did not impose on your language, like the seriousness with which you did or did not write. I'd noticed myself, I had a hard time deciding if I was going to say mom or mother. And I never call my mom mother. She's mom for sure. But in this poem, I suddenly wanted to say mother because I felt like there was a kind of seriousness, like a somberness that I very purposefully avoided when I decided to call her mom instead. I wrote mom down. And so it applies, I think. This is a serious idea, like the idea of leaving one's parents. And it's usually imbued with a lot of ceremony, right? And so how you relate to that through your tone speaks to how you relate to the conundrum of growing up. My insistence on saying mom, I think, says something about the relationship that I have with her. So point is, there is something to be gleaned from studying the way that you've spoken about this situation. And I can't tell you exactly what it is, but only you can sense it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this poem down for a sec. Though I hope you come back to this one. I am 100% going to go back to this one and keep working at it because there's some really like tender and interesting shit in here. I decided that I was poet laureate of space and that I had to go to space for the rest of my life. We're going to continue this experiment with something that linguists call code switching. I don't know if other people know this term. Code switching is the act of, it's when a person uses different words to communicate the same information because the context has somehow changed. And as we know, different words also means different tone, right? So another way of saying it is code switching is the linguistic term for the act of telling a story one way at the dinner table with your parents and telling the same story in a very different way if you're at a fast food restaurant with your friends, right? Even if the story's structure and the punchline all remain the same, the dressing around that information inevitably changes based on who you're talking to. And again, these word choices are felt. They are the result of feelings and senses. They are not consciously decided, right? So, I mean, to try and consciously decide all of one's word choices, that's what we call neuroticism. So what we're going to try to do is the same exercise, but with a different twist, right? Same information, different tone. So now on a new page, imagine that you have the same piece of information from the first exercise, that you're leaving for your dream job, but it will make you inaccessible because you're going to be in space at the bottom of the ocean, whatever. But now imagine the subject of your poem is, instead of your parent, it's your favorite pet. So imagine that you have to break the news to your favorite pet, living or dead. And if you've never had a favorite poem, or sorry, if you've never had a favorite pet, do your younger sibling instead. But so on a new page, same format as before, short, quick lines, no more than half a page, 60 words total, to both explain and say goodbye. And last time, I didn't talk about the metaphor until after you'd written the poem, but now that we have it, I think I want you to think about it as you work. How do you think the mood of the poem changes with the presence, without the presence of this growing out from under my parents metaphor? What metaphor, if any, exists in its place? And if there isn't one, what else is there? Does this goodbye have a different sense of finality? Does it lack that sense? And how does all this stuff contribute to the mood? And I'm going to interrupt you again at around the halfway point, but you may begin.
How long are we going to this one?
Same amount of time, so I'm going to interrupt us in like 6 minutes, and we'll probably go for about a total of 12. Same information as before, but your address now is to your favorite pet. Okay, at this point, we're about halfway. So I just want to say, if you're feeling stuck or you've already reached the bottom of your page, if the poem just fell out of you, I would like to invite you to start over, clean up your poem, take out lines you didn't like, add new ones, or just start with a new person in mind. We've got about another 5-6 minutes left. About a minute left. Okay. So now you've got these two poems on separate pages, and we're going to spend a moment comparing them. I've kind of tricked you into giving us lots of space for the next part of the exercise. Although the short lines, I'm really pleased with the short lines. They were working today. What I want you to do is go through both poems now. Read them over again. Highlight or underline or circle the words you think are most critical to the poem, the ones you think determine your tone. There will be nouns, chorus, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs, but you also might find that other words indicate a specific tone. Like, did you say to your parent that you must go? Where maybe to your pet, you simply said that you're leaving. Did you use the word shall in one poem, but not the other? For my money, shall is like an extremely good indicator of a certain kind of tone in a poem. So go through and indicate which words you think are most critical. Then write a few words at the bottom or the margins of the page that summarize and describe the tone as you see it happening in the poem. And then I'm kind of leading you into a question here, which is, what do you think it is about these two relationships between one with your parent and one with your cat that make this tone appear? Go. And I'm going to interrupt you in about 3 minutes. Exactly. About a minute. So here are the questions that I kind of want to leave you with after this exercise. And I said, what do you think it is about these two relationships between you and your parent, you and your pet, that made these tones happen? What similar sliding scale do both of these relationships exist upon that enable these different outcomes? How are these two figures opposite figures? What determines how we come to these opposite ends? And exactly what spectrum am I talking about here? I can't answer these questions for you, but my hope is that through an exercise like this, you can begin to see that writing is a way for you to arm yourself with the tools to start tinkering with your own life. And even in building a problem, that even in a poem addressed to your cat, you can find something of yourself there, something that maybe you hadn't ever put down before in exactly those same words. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you have a lovely weekend. If I'm a little slow in responding to you this weekend, it's just because I'm at a bachelor party until Sunday night. So have no fear. I will get back to you. And I will see you on Monday.
See you Monday.
What Monday?
See you on Monday.
Have a good one. You too, Matt. Have a good weekend.